But yeah, Andy and Nick, late night edition coming at you here. Nick's got a cool women's makeup light.
Yeah. Well, just got one of these guys. Didn't realize it was intended for teenage girls, and thought it would help with the lighting. Now I just feel feminine.
Yeah, well, it helps.
But
I
got the
just,
light coming
I
on
just sat
top.
under a light fixture is what I did.
Yeah, I just look crazy no matter what I do. That's better. That's better than the other.
Yeah, the shade on your face is working.
Jeez.
Well, hey man, we were just talking before the recording here, and we were saying we're gonna just talk about what we're reading, and then I guess we could encourage people to read more. I took a walk with Andrew Udarian, and he was saying there's a meme going around that shows this stack of books. It says books I was going to read in 2020, and then it says what I actually read in 2020, and it was just the Twitter logo. So there's that. So I wonder if so we're stuck at home. It's a great time to soak in some good content. Some of us might be doing that. It might just be by nature what we do. Some of us might be taking in a lot of other media, and maybe reading a book would be a good call.
I would say most likely everybody's watching The Tiger King.
So I've heard. I haven't watched.
I watched it. I watched it like a lot. What is on the bottom of your mug? What's going on with that?
Oh, I've got tea.
Oh, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
Dude, crazy show. There are insane people in the world. So.
Yeah, that's the big thing, man. Yeah, I think I've officially decided I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, I'm just going to avoid it.
Yeah, we watched the movie Tootsie. It's on Netflix the other day. Have you ever seen that?
No.
From '82. Dustin Hoffman, struggling actor, can't get a job, ends up auditioning to be a woman, gets the job, and finds out what it's like for women to experience showbiz. Actually,
that's modern stuff right there. That's very appropriate for today.
Bill Murray is just like a co-star in the movie, which is interesting.
That reminds me of Zombieland, which is one of my favorites. Just the perfect intersection of murderiness and humor.
Oh my gosh, that movie, man. I don't know. I've seen it. I have seen it. Anyway, Tootsie on Netflix. Give it a try. But what we were saying, we should read, not watch. Yes. That's what we were trying to say.
Sorry, there was a fly. I just tried.
Nick's losing his mind.
For books, really.
So what are you reading?
So right now, I'm reading a few books, and I'm listening to one.
Okay.
I'm listening to Herodotus, Histories, which I highly doubt anybody would actually listen to that other than me.
Okay.
Pretty nerd thing. But I started listening to it because in it, he records Alexander the Great and how he had a vision, a dream of a person in purple robes calling him to conquer. And when he got to Jerusalem, so the book goes, the high priest took all the Levites and said, we're not going to combat this. And he put on purple. And so I guess when Alexander the Great went through Jerusalem and he got to the temple, he saw this priest and was like, you're the man for my dreams.
Wow.
And so he didn't completely destroy them. So I heard that and I was like, I got to read this book.
Okay.
Listen to the book because it's a beast.
Wow. That's a whole nother take on you're the man of my dreams.
Right. Yeah. Alexander had a man crush.
Okay.
So I'm listening to that. I'm reading currently Following Jesus by N.T. Wright, Biblical Reflections on Discipleship.
I read that, a couple months ago. It was great. I thought it was really good.
Super good. And he just knocks out books of the Bible, like New Testament, explaining how Jesus is discipling and what it looks like to follow Jesus. One of the things that I really got excited about was when he goes through the book of Mark, he touches on it a little bit, but he's talking about Mary Magdalene while she's at the tomb after Jesus has resurrected. She's weeping. Jesus walks up and is he's like, man, why are you weeping? And she turns around to him and she assumes that he's the gardener.
Right.
So then she continues to go and pray. And he just puts a little note in there like, oh, I guess it's not so absurd that Mary thought he was the gardener. And I had kind of a mind explosion moment when I'm thinking about the first man, Adam, and the best man, Christ, and Tiki Tak. And I'm thinking like Adam is created and he's put in the garden to be a gardener. And so that's what he is. He's a gardener. But he rebels against God and ruins the soil. And so the rest of his life will be toil and sacrifice over and over and over again. And then Christ comes in, and Christ comes to the earth, and he obeys God and follows God and intentionally sacrifices. And what he does is he tills up the good soil for the church. And he's the better Adam. And eventually we'll see a complete transformation, a redemption of all the earth into that perfect garden state, except for we'll see a big city, which is an interesting idea.
Right.
So when Mary assumes he's the gardener, like in a very real sense, he is the new, better gardener that tills the ground for the saints to grow. And so nerded out on that for a little bit.
Yeah. All right. Are those your two, or is there another one?
Oh, there's more. I'm reading the Preacher's Catechism.
Do you read a lot of books at once, or do you like one at a time? A lot of
yeah, I'm a many book guy. So Lewis Allen wrote Preacher's Catechism, and basically just walks you through like old catechisms, but he puts it for preachers specifically and how they struggle and work. I'm reading a real fun one called Demon Possession and the Christian, a New Perspective. You know, that's it's actually,
I feel like you're pretty much always reading a book about that.
Yeah, I don't know any, like, I will be honest, I feel like I do not know enough about that.
Okay.
So an area where I'm like, so much bad information has been put out, and I'm trying to find good, solid, biblical, non-crazy information.
Who's that one by?
Huh?
Who's that one by?
This one's by Fred Dickinson. So, and the reason why I'm reading that is I read one by Mark Bubeck that was recommended to me by Rod over at the Village. And Mark Bubeck wrote the intro to this book. Basically said, like, we looked at this in very different ways, but we came to the exact same conclusion. So I wanted to in a new way. Bad Luck and Trouble by Lee Child.
Okay.
Like, you know, just a good, you don't have to think about this book. Like, this guy, he's the hero. He's going to go in. He's not the perfect hero. You know, I don't know if you read any of Lee Child's stuff, but it's super quick, super easy, entertaining, and kind of mindless. Sorry, Lee Child. And then last is Reading People: How to Understand People and Predict Their Behavior. It was written by a person who's a professional jury selector.
Oh.
And so it's a little outdated, but it's just interesting what they talk about hairstyles and what that says about political leanings. Things like that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's really interesting. So those are my books.
Sweet.
That's it. What about you?
Well, I generally read one at a time, but every once in a while I start into one and I realize it's kind of a slow mover, or has to be. And so I do have one I didn't bring over. That is, what's it called? No, sheesh. I don't know. Basically, it's a history of quotes and stories about pastors, and under a bunch of different themes. And so those themes might be things like misbehaving, or like weird, quirky stuff that is like where there'll be like 5 stories of pastors doing these weird things. And then sometimes it's good things, like giving really good advice or whatever. It's a pretty interesting collection, but it's not one you just sit down and read. It's all these short pieces. So
interesting.
Anyway, I'm reading that. And then, guess what? Surprise, surprise. Rod Hugin's Parallels, Lenten Devotional.
Solid devotional. If you're writing a book, the company that printed that book for him, on point. Best
Oh,
company I've ever heard of.
yeah, they must be. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. But yeah, I am, and I'm enjoying it. So Rod parallels Genesis and the Book of John, and
So good, right?
yeah, it's actually really interesting. It's really, really interesting. So I've been just taking it day at a time. It's been good.
Yeah.
And then the other one, which is reminding me a little bit of how you're feeling about that Into Your Right book, is this one. Yeah, The Bees of Rainbow Falls by Preston Puteau. I think you'll like this, Nick. So this
All
dude
right.
is a pastor in Canada, and he went to school and got out and moved into a new suburb. And he and his wife were like, "Oh, it's gonna be nice." And then they realized there's all this dust, and all the yards were the same, and there really weren't any plants. And he was kind of like, maybe this isn't even a really good place to be. Like there's a lot of issues with like a new community where they plowed over all the earth and built all these homes and walls and put in gravel. And yeah, long story short, it was illegal to have bees in their town, and they realized when they started planting plants they wouldn't get pollinated anyway. And so he, along with being a pastor, ended up being a part of this citywide movement to bring back bees in their town. And
Oh, that's interesting.
yeah, and he now is like a beekeeper, but bees have become like a big theme of this town, and he was a part of it. And so he keeps bees in his yard, and they've really just changed the culture, planted a lot, seen a lot of agriculture kind of go in among the homes. And so, yeah, it's his interesting journey of being a pastor and doing kind of community development that really started with beekeeping. But the interesting thing was he was talking about the end of Luke where Jesus was broiling the fish and talking about the land of milk and honey back in, and he did a lot of history because he got really into bees. And so there was some history that was saying there weren't any bees really cultivated in ancient cities. And they recently, archaeologists found that wasn't true, and that in some Jewish cities, they had major beekeeping operations, actually. They found a historical site with these ancient, beehives.
No way.
So they learned that they actually did. And so they predated, so they were old enough to say that maybe when Israel came into Canaan, the Canaanites were beekeeping. And so when it was a land of milk and honey, it may have been because the people were cultivating the bees. That's kind of interesting. And then he was talking about how, key that phrase, land of milk and honey was. And milk and honey are both, they're not just, they're things you have to like process. People have to milk an animal, people have to harvest the honey. And he was kind of getting at what it meant that God had prepared a land for people to work. And then he was saying at the end of Luke, when Jesus is broiling the fish on the seashore, that in the Aramaic text it says he was eating a honeycomb as well. And he was he was kind of speculating. He's like, we don't really know why in the Aramaic text for Jewish people, they added that, but did they see a parallel in Jesus, bringing about this like idea of milk and honey and kind of bringing things full circle? Why was it so important to them to
add in the honeycomb?
And then he was talking about a church that, an old English church, I don't know, pretty old, now a relic, where they found that up in the steeple, the architect had built in beehive spaces that couldn't be harvested. And so it was just like a gift to the bees. Like they just wanted bees to live in their church and pollinate the land around them. And there were a lot of reasons, like old churches wanted bees. They actually kept bees a lot because they could get candle wax and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But he was saying it was just a really interesting find where this one church was just like, we're going to host the bees and not take anything. We're just going to make, and they spent money and time to build in space into their architecture just to have bees. Anyway, so I found that all really interesting. I'm only a third of the way into the book, but he's talking about his experience. He keeps bringing in all this historical bee stuff. It's pretty cool.
That's interesting. Yeah, it almost reminds me of The Marvelous Pigness of Pigs.
Oh, okay.
Another Canadian author whose name, Salatin, that's his name.
Okay.
Joe Salatin, I think. Anyway, but it's all about like crop rotation and caring for the earth and how to do that on like a low budget, and God's design for us to live in conjunction with animals and help them flourish.
Yeah.
And it's I would assume Sarah Brown has read it.
Yeah. If not,
Bridget
Sarah,
G's
you
read
should.
it. Yeah, Sarah, read that book.
I'll tell you what, this book is making me want to see a lot more plants on our property and bees and,
we
cattle,
could just put a bunch of bees
whatever.
on the roof.
Yeah, we could build it in there, man.
Yeah.
It happened. So, well, let's wrap it up right there and just say books are cool. They've kept us entertained, and look at the amazing things we had to talk about because we were reading a book.
Yeah.
What else could we talk about? Oh, COVID-19. Wow. Nobody's doing that.
That's so yesterday.
Seriously. So, hey, read a book.
Read a book.
All right.